So if you're tired of throwing away money on rent and, well, wondering if the additional cost of buying versus renting makes even sense for you, well, today, for many buyers, it does make sense to buy versus rent, but there are times when it does make more sense to rent than buy. So today I'll show you how you can determine when buying or renting will make more sense for you. Now, as I did some research, I noticed that financial planners shared how the stock market averages returns beat the housing market average returns. Well, today I will show you why that's not true and how real estate can often overtake the stock market averages. Now, there are some basic benefits that I wanted to mention when deciding on buying or renting. So when you purchase a property, you are essentially locking in your mortgage payment for the next 30 years. So I do find it's helpful to take usually a longer view on the rent versus mortgage payment perspective. There are, however, other monthly costs of homeownership that you can expect to go up over time. But the one other surprising benefit is that if interest rates drop, you can refinance and lower your payment, which many of us have done over the past 5 years. And on the other hand, it's not uncommon for rent to go up 3 to 5% a year. So we'll take a closer look at how this can affect your decision. Secondly, you have obviously way more control when you own your home. You can make changes or updates to your property without checking with the landlord, and you don't have to worry about the landlord deciding to sell the property and having to kick you out. The third is one of my favorite reasons for owning property, and due to inflation, you actually get to pay the bank mortgage back with money that is worth less over time. Let me explain. Due to inflation that happens each year, which makes the dollar worth less each year, or another way of saying it is that it takes more dollars to buy the same thing years later. Yet you are not having to do that with a mortgage. So you are in fact paying the lender back with dollars that are worth less each year. So I'm sure that puts a smile on your face. Now, before I continue, I'm Harold Powell, a local real estate agent serving the Ventura and surrounding communities. And if you want to stay up to date on all things real estate and the surrounding area, well, then hit the subscribe, like, and bell icon to be notified of future content. All right, so let's take a look at the costs for renting versus owning. The cost of renting is actually pretty straightforward, with the rent being the total cost you pay your landlord. So again, if you rent for $4,000 a month, multiplied by 12 months, you have a $48,000 a year out-of-pocket expense. And the plus side is you don't have any additional maintenance costs on top of that number. So let's do a rundown on the costs of home ownership versus renting. Number one is the down payment, which is just how much cash you will put down to purchase the property. Number two is the mortgage payment, which consists of monthly principal and interest payments. Number three is property taxes that are either paid twice a year or included in your monthly payment. And number four is homeowner insurance that insures the home against fire or windstorm damage or other perils. And number five is maintenance costs. And number six is closing costs when buying or selling. So let's address each of these costs of home ownership and shed some light on each one. I will use an example of purchasing a home for $800,000 versus renting a property for $3,800 a month going forward. So let's look at the down payment. In this example, we put 20% down on $800,000 and finance the remainder over the course of 30 years. So 20% down is going to be equivalent to $160,000 down payment. Now, this is where we need to address the opportunity costs of buying a home. And when the opportunity cost occurs, you will have to decide to invest in something that potentially is going to cost an opportunity to put it in another type of investment. So in this case, we are going to put the down payment money towards a house versus renting. And having it invested elsewhere, you could put it in the stock market. And financial planners and experts claim the stock market return is 10% a year. Of course, there is no guarantee on that number. And other options you could invest in would be a CD, which is currently getting about 4.5% to 5%, or first trust deeds that may offer 8%. And of course, the more liquid option is putting in a savings account and getting maybe 4%. Now, real estate in California has gone up an average of 6.7 over 30 years. So I think that's a pretty safe assumption that we can use that for now. And by the way, Southern California over the past 10 years has gone up 8% a year. Now, I've watched a few financial planners present how stocks outperform real estate returns by 4 to 5% a year. Now, this could be true if you weren't getting a loan. However, when you put 20% down on purchasing an asset, you are using leverage to acquire it. And in this case, we are leveraging by 5 times. 20 goes into 100 5 times. In an example, if a yearly appreciation on the house is 5%, then your rate of return on a 20% down is roughly 25% a year. I say roughly because there will be closing costs to buy and sell the property and additional costs that we'll talk about. Additionally, the appreciation on a portion of the principal residence is protected from capital gains when you sell. So currently, the first $500,000 profit for a married couple is tax-free, and the first $250,000 profit for a single person is tax-free, unlike a brokerage account, which you'll have to pay either long or short-term capital gains when you sell. So let's do a quick side-by-side comparison to explain the appreciation difference, let's say over 5 years. On one side, you put $160,000 in stocks with a 10% rate of return over 5 years, would increase the investment to approximately $205,000 in total, or $45,000 on the initial $160,000. On the other side, you have a principal residence for $800,000. You put $160,000 down, and if the property goes up 5% a year, in 5 years, the home value would have increased to about $1,026,000. This equates to about $226,000 of tax-free profit minus buying and selling closing costs on the $160,000. Not bad. So you can see why the combination of leverage over time makes real estate ownership very attractive. However, if you don't allow time to work, then it could be a bad decision to buy. And we'll take a look at that towards the end of the video. So next up is the mortgage payment, which is typically paid over 30 years. And the benefit of the mortgage payment versus rent is that a portion of the mortgage payment goes towards paying down the loan. About 1% of your payment goes towards the principal for the first year, but it increases each year thereafter, which increases the equity in your home. Now, with the current rates hovering around 6.5%, the mortgage payment on this would be about $4,045 a month. Next is property taxes. So property taxes occur on any property that you own land, and the state of California property tax rate is 1.1% of the property value at the time of purchase. So the most your property tax can actually increase each year is 2% in California. Now, the reason your property tax rate could be more than 1.1% each year is that if there are additional school bonds that were passed for your area, which will be included in your tax bill. And in some cases, properties that have additional taxes called Mello-Roos, which will often bring the tax rate up to about 2% of the sale price. Obviously, you do need to be aware if the property is located in a Mello-Roos district. So for now, let's assume 1.1% tax rate on $800,000, which equates to about $8,800 a year. Now, I should mention if you are currently owning a home and you're over 55, considering a move in California, then I suggest watching my video on property tax transfer, Prop 19, explained and calculated. It will explain just how you can transfer your property tax to the next property, which can be a substantial savings. The next cost is the maintenance cost of your home. Now, this can vary widely depending on the condition of the home you purchase. Yeah, experts suggest using about a 1% of your property's value per year set aside for maintenance costs. And I will say, if you're buying a newer home, you should have very little costs associated with this number for years to come. And the other clarification is really the home buyers will often change things or make improvements to the home, room additions, things like that, which don't count as maintenance. But the things that would be maintenance items would be having to replace a roof, the water heater goes out or dishwasher goes out, things like that that need to be replaced. So next on this list is going to be home insurance. And home insurance will be required by the lender and added as a loss payee in the event the house suffers damages, let's say from fire. Now, homes that are in a fire hazard area will pay a higher premium than those that are not. And for homes not located in a fire hazard area, the insurance premium for a home is roughly 0.35% of the market value. So a home with a market value of $800,000 would have a home insurance premium of around $2,800 a year. Lastly, our closing costs when you purchase and again when you sell. Now, the reason why this is important is that it affects your overall net profit when you break down everything and deciding whether to buy or sell. So typically a buyer will have loan fees, escrow fees, property taxes, interest that will all be about 2 to 2.5% on the sale price. And then the seller's closing costs when you turn around and sell would run anywhere from 6 to 6.5% on average. So let's first address and take a look at the basic monthly cost of home ownership and the benefits of amortization at work. I will put the link of the mortgage calculator in the description below. So I've already input some of the basic numbers we chatted about, which is the price, the 20% down, obviously loan terms of 30 years, 6.5% interest rate. And we've also included now the estimated property tax of 1.1, the homeowner's insurance. No PMI here because it's 20% down, no HOA fee, other costs. I chose to kind of simplify this. Then you just hit the calculate button, and what it's going to do is pop up what the monthly payment is, your property tax, and homeowner's insurance. So again, in this case, the total out-of-pocket expenses, a little over $5,000. The thing I wanted to really show here, which I thought would be of interest to you, would be taking a look at the monthly amortization schedule. So you can see here, roughly a little under $600 a month that is going towards your principal reduction. In fact, here's the loan balance just going down, down, down. So that's, again, one of the benefits of home ownership versus having to rent. Now this one, again, this is a very simplified version. So the next one we're going to take a look at is going to really give us a better idea of buying versus renting. We'll actually be able to determine when it makes sense. All right, so let's skip into that. So this is our rent versus buy calculator. I have a link of this in the description below. So here, we got to have some similar parameters. We have the home sale price, the down payment, interest rate, mortgage time frame. Now we started having to put additional buying costs in as well as selling costs, because now it's going to calculate and compare the overall cost of renting, the total cost of renting versus the total cost of buying, which includes buying and selling it, and how these two compare. As well as also calculate, in this case, average investment return. So if you took that down payment, reinvested it, and was getting 8% a year, how that compares to owning and getting home price appreciation. In this case, we have an 8, so we're going to put it at 6.7. We'll use the California average is what we'll use in this case. Homeowner's insurance, then we also have that at $2,800 with the 3% increase a year on that. Selling costs, I will make the $3,800 will be the rent at 3% a year increase. I'm not going to worry about the federal tax rates and such for now, because I checked with your CPA, because there's a couple things you need to be aware of, but we won't get into that at this point. So you hit the calculate. Now, here's the beauty of this, is that right off it says how long you need to be in the property for. You need to be there at least 3.1 years to at least break even with all the costs that you have associated with buying. So otherwise, you're better off renting.
is really bottom line. And obviously you can change these parameters, your down payment. You could put a different down payment in. Let's say you want to put 10% down instead and calculate. Well, it's going to take actually, in this case, a little bit less, right? Three years, 1 month less, not a ton of difference. But appreciation, I imagine, could make a big difference. Yeah, it does make a big difference. So it jumps it down to 2.2 years. And the other thing is things change over time. It's not going to stay steady at 8% or 6%. This is going to fluctuate. So it's probably somewhat accurate. The further out you go in time, the less accurate this is going to be. But it does give you a very good idea of whether you're trying to make a decision, like how long you're going to be in a location and how long you need to be there, to allow time to really work and leverage to work to your benefit when you own real estate. So if you do have questions about this, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, if you enjoyed this video and got a lot of good ideas out of this, give us a thumbs up or make a comment below. Thanks.